Okay, welcome to KayoticVerse. We're going to be talking about Stranger Things and the negative reviews. And I want to start by saying the delusional shippers and the insatiable consumers of negative reviews of Stranger Things are one and the same. What do I mean by that? There's a pattern I keep noticing with the negative reviews, and basically it's the same discourse that's in the shipper community, which I did not know shipping was still a thing. I kind of wish it wasn't for more mental reasons, but I'm not gonna talk about that. But a lot of these reviewers aren't actually critiques of how the show already exists. They're complaints that the writers didn't tell the story in a way that personally satisfies the viewer's personal bias and own point of view. All right, that's not an analysis. That's entitlement dressed up as criticism. We have people saying that the writers should have wrote it this way and that this person doesn't need screen time. If those things would have happened, you would have seen that get written. This is like, I don't know if this is a normal thing with shows, because I more so like watch breakdowns and sort of called like semi decoding, so you can like get like the Easter eggs. There were more negative reviews of this than actual breakdowns, and I like the show, type of reviews. But like I said, a lot of these reviews aren't actually critiquing the show as it exists. They're just complaints that the writers, didn't write the story that satisfies the actual reviewer. That's not an analysis. That is entitlement that is dressed up as criticism. So, like, the first, we have people that saying that there's a lot of plot holes and that the story's transitioning too fast. You guys know this is a season 5 finale. The show's been going for 10 years. They told everybody that, hey, the kids are growing up faster than the actual timeline. We knew these things were going to occur. All right. So the first thing that I heard a negative reviewer say was that, why didn't they just evacuate the town? They didn't evacuate the town because the viewer also had some harsh criticism on Robin's appearances and said that she looked old and that Robin is just a waste of a character. There's no point in her being there. She's like the gay token character, and she does nothing, and she just randomly has these epiphanies. I'm pretty sure that's called thinking, and we're moving the plot forward when these epiphanies occur, because if epiphanies don't occur, then we're stuck problem solving. I need people to look up what a plot graph is so that they could understand what's going on here. But like I said, the town did not get evacuated because the townspeople inhaled particles and they did not know what the exposure to these particles would do to the townspeople. So rather than evacuate them, they quarantined the entire town. Yes, there's a rift. The government obviously does not care. Do you think the government cares about people? Why would they spend a lot of money evacuating them when they've already been experimenting on them for who knows how long? This is an 80s style show, so there's no smartphones, there's no instant fixes, and there's no mass communication. People complained about the constant conversations that occurred. That is how communication works, especially within that time. This is the 80s styles narrative. They have to come together. That's what community is. I don't know what people are thinking. Well, I do, but it just doesn't make sense to me. That's really what I should say. Right. People have to talk to each other. They have to share information. They have to think things together. Complaining about that isn't critiquing the writing. It's rejecting the genre. And there's been a lot of just rejecting what is already written and in front of you. And I feel like that's what the Byler community is also doing, but I have to talk about that a little bit further down. So, why are characters having epiphanies? Because apparently that was like a huge problem of the constant gathering and epiphanies. So another thing that I constantly see is people criticizing the characters for having realizations, as if epiphanies aren't how the stories move forward. That's basically storytelling. That's where you get your plot graph that I mentioned earlier. The exposition, the rising actions, the moments of realization, and then the payoff, right? If characters don't connect these dots together, the plot wouldn't exist, right? Disliking that isn't writing critique. It's a misunderstanding of narrative structure. All right. Hopefully I'm explaining that well. So the Robin problem. Some people have a problem with Robin. I do not know why, because she has been very key in this whole entire show of how Will was able to take over Vecna, how Will was able to conquer mental fragility. But let me digress. So the Robin problem, redirected discomfort is what I'm calling that. There's a problem was it where criticism stops being analysis and turns into redirected discomfort. I've seen reviewers and saw actors' appearances or dismiss Robin as unimportant, despite the fact that Robin is the one that has constantly been the most effective problem solver. She decodes information, pushes the plot forward, acts as emotional support for Steve and Will. People forget how important that Robin is to Steve. Robin was there for Steve after Nancy. He even had a crush on Robin. That allowed, instead of Robin, rejecting him, she opened up to him and came out. They're best friends. The relationship has deepened, actually. Not only that, she, like I said, mentioned earlier, she helped Will come out and conquer those identity issues. And then the whole the whole tower thing, that was her idea as well. So Robin didn't come out of nowhere and just start having these epiphanies. They just finally gave her a background information and a story that included her into the show instead of making her a sidebar character. Okay? Hopefully I explained that right. So this show is about risk and honesty. Every meaningful relationship in this show exists because someone took risk. Joyce had lost Bob, but that loss allowed her to have Hopper. Nancy was honest with Steve, even when it hurt her. She couldn't be with Steve. She got Jonathan. This doesn't make this anyway. It doesn't matter anyway. So the thing with Will, representation and misplaced anger. This is where things start getting kind of uncomfortable. When people call Will's coming out scene cringe unnecessary, it ended up opening a door for, because what happened with his coming out scene is that the gay community had a problem with it, the Byler community had a problem with it, and then normal people were already gonna have a problem with it because, we're not gay, so like, why would we be like, this is so great, you know what I'm saying? But when their own community is like, oh, it's terrible, it basically, what happened is it opened up the door for others to pile on it in like openly homophobic ways and make a lot of jokes. And this is something that I don't think their community picked up on. And I just want you to know, like, when you basically told the writers that who spent the longest amount of time writing this scene that they did horrible and that it was terrible, a lot of people started making a lot of homophobic jokes. And I'm not laughing. I'm laughing because, one, the writers literally gave you guys the most amount of time and you guys hated it. I don't know why. They also said the acting was bad. Okay, cool. I'm just enjoying the show overall. These opinions to me were kind of crazy. I don't think a coming out scene is supposed to be perfect. Somebody's being vulnerable and it's uncomfortable. People were like, why are people standing in the background when he came out? I think you missed the point of why they were standing in the background and didn't hug Will, because they don't care. Your perspective is actually written in the show and you missed it. Either they might be homophobic or they just don't care because one who didn't know that Will kind of wasn't fruity. That perspective is in the show and you're like, it's dumb because when Will came out, it was just awkward and everybody was looking at him and Hopper was just standing in the background. What, do you think a man from the military is going to hug a kid that just say he don't like girls? And then y'all turn around and say, why, if they're going to go fight Vecna and the world's going to end in a day, did they spend 30 minutes to having Will coming out? Did you guys forget that Vecna told Will that he was mentally weak? And I assume the K character thought if I didn't come out, that's what's probably making me weak, because they've been building up for him to come out. I don't know why y'all had a problem with it. It was pretty obvious. That character was written that way either way. And then, like, I don't know. Have y'all seen a video of someone come up? Have y'all seen what the family does? They tell the person that most of the time they don't care. That's what you've seen in the show. But I digress. We'll get into shippers later. Anyway, so, like I said, when people called Will's coming out scene cringe unnecessary, open the door for the homophobic jokes and openly homophobic ways to occur. The irony is that the scene was handled with care, though. Like I said, Noah Schnapp has talked about how much discussion and intention went into it, and it wasn't meant to be celebratory. It was meant to be honest. true to the time period and Will's emotional state. People are like, well, he said he didn't like girls. It is the 80s. Will is confused. He hasn't owned his own body the entire time. It was meant to be honest, true to the period and Will's emotional state. Fear doesn't cancel growth, it defines it. That's pretty much it. You just got to watch Will overcome something that made him uncomfortable and that he felt, I guess, made him weak. Because you got to remember, he's felt different his entire life. That difference is what made him feel weak. All right. So, people that said that the people look older and that the actors are on their track, bro. You're not, bro. I had a lot of people come. Yeah, I'm not saying a lot of people. It was just one particular guy that was commenting on the appearances of the actor. You do know this is a show. I'm not gonna say like you're not gonna sleep with the character, bro. You're not here to like be sexually like looking at the characters. It's a show about. It's a metaphysical show, dang near, bro. They're fighting interdimensional beings and the mind flare and Vecna. This is what I mean about like people's personal bias being on the show. They're more worried about who people are sleeping with and dating than actually enjoying the show. You're not getting what you want because it's not your show. You're here to enjoy it. That's really the whole point of making this video. Let's continue. Because the next complaint was Holly. People complained about Holly, right? There was another review that said Holly's screen time should have been replaced with Mike's. Holly's screen time needs to be cut down. Holly is important, and Holly is important because she goes in line with what's been happening in the show, and she shows you that what's been happening in the show is still occurring till that time, that day and time and period of that show. Also, had a reviewer say that they should have replaced, instead of having the 12 kids as the clock, like the people in the clock, they should have had adults. Vecna does not. What show are y'all watching? Vecna does not want adults. He's been snatching kids. They've been snatching kids. Who was the first person to get snatched? Wasn't an adult. It was a kid. It was Will. He's snatching kids. What are you talking about? Vecna should grab adults. Are y'all trying to rewrite the show? Bro, go watch a different show. The negative reviews were not negative critiques or reviews. They were not critiques. They were more so like, write it how I want to. Why is Holly important, right? I've seen people argue that Holly's scene should be cut down. I do not agree. But Vecna targets children is what I'm saying, right? He's the first child he snatched, Will. Even when Vecna Henry got snatched, he was a child. I don't want to be rude, but it's dumb. That doesn't even fit Vecna's MO. Will was taken as a child. Max was targeted the same way. Holly fits the pattern. Guess how does Holly fit into that? Holly's peers who are children were also snatched and placed into the clock. Jeez. She represents what's still at stake. Innocence. Hope. Children. She also reinforces Mike's role as in belief. Anyway. And I want to say that because Mike has always been the one who helps others believe they still can act. Holly did the same thing for Max and got Max out the coma. People seem to have forgot that Holly got Max out the coma. So to say that Holly's scenes need to be cut down and that this should have been happened by this episode, no. Write your own show and submit it to Netflix. This is a $1 billion, $1 trillion show. It's not happening. It's not. I think they're really trying to move the show fast so that they can actually write something that'll be a little bit more consistent, because they started off as kids and that these young adults are not children anymore. So I think they're just trying to kind of like wrap this up so they can have what you guys are calling an epilogue. And you guys are crapping on the epilogue before they can even get there. The finale hadn't even happened when I record this. It hadn't even happened. So let me continue. Like I said, cutting Holly wouldn't tighten the story. It would be removing a lot of things. Without Holly, you don't get to see what the children are going through. You don't get to see Mr. What's-It. You don't get to see the other dimension, because that's where Holly is at. All right? So hopefully that makes sense, right? So this all points to the same issue. Instead of asking what are the writers doing, some viewers keep asking, why didn't they do what I wanted? Something that satisfies me that I can understand. Right. Duffers has said in interviews that this level of over analysis and projection is exhausting, and it's easy to see why. because people aren't just critiquing choices, they are trying to rewrite the show into something that feels safer and more comfortable. Oof. So, I think people are missing the point. What is Stranger Things about, right? Stranger Things is about uncertainty, fear, belief, and growth. The characters don't have the perfect information all the time. They fail, they regroup, they rely on each other. Will's arc isn't about a romantic payoff, it's about reclaiming himself, having self power, and right? Vecna says outright Will was vulnerable because he lacked self belief. He called him mentally weak. That's why his growth is internal. So with Will and his whole shipping thing, because people were upset about him not being shipped with Mike. Okay, let me read my notes, because this one I do need to read the notes for, right? A lot of people had anger around Will. A lot of anger around Will isn't actually about representation. And yes, we were talking about the Bylers at this point. I didn't think I was going to be getting to that, but hopefully this all falls together when I edit it. A lot of anger around Will isn't about representation. It's about unmet expectations, bro. The Duffers have been clear that Will's arc is about self-belief and not about a romantic payoff. That's not erasing his queerness. Anyway, whatever. That's refusing to rewrite a character to fit someone else's fantasy. Vecna explicitly tells Will he was vulnerable because he lacked self-belief. That line defines his arc. His growth is internal. That's intentional. All right? So, why do I say it's intentional? Like I mentioned earlier, he had been doing what? Asking Robin questions about her and how she knew she was gay, right? Will has felt different his entire life. He asked questions because he's basically been battling, why does he feel different? They built up to that. That happened. People are like, why did he come out? Because he has to conquer his demons so that he could basically take over Vecna. And I don't know if I'm right now, but yeah, anyway, he lacks self-belief essentially. My thing with the Byler community, Mike is not gay. I want to be completely honest with y'all. Y'all will never get this Byler thing you're asking for. I don't want to be rude, but it's never happening. Mike is not gay. The directors have never written that into existence. Like, they've actually have quotes where they've said you guys basically overanalyze every single thing. And from a person who was in a fandom, I know what you guys are doing, and I don't want to be rude when I say this, but I need you guys to touch grass. And I need you to take a risk in real life. Because if you trying to force the directors to write this show to have a character who is not gay be with another person who is not going to happen. He has been with 11 since he has liked and been with 11 since he met her. When they broke up, he was sad. He spent most of his time chasing her. Will comforted Mike, and you guys took simple friendship gestures as a possibility that they would be in a future romantic relationship, and that's not going to happen. That's like never going to happen. I don't know why. I just don't know. I don't know in your mind's eye how you think the directors ever signaled that possibility of you ever happening. And then I heard someone say because he looked at his lips. Are you guys serious? What if his lips was dry? Like, I did not know shipping was a thing, and I don't think you need to understand that shipping. You guys said that the Duff brothers were queer baiting. You guys are queer baiting yourselves. Because the directors have told y'all that y'all overanalyze things. Mike is not gay. Will is, and good for him, but Mike's not. Like I said, he's been chasing after 11. He's been with 11 since like the beginning of the show. I think that's pretty much it for the Bylers. I don't think I need to say anything else besides delusional. Like, seriously. Just straight delusional. I'm trying to think of something else to say. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, I just think you guys are kind of delusional when it comes to that. I might redo this whole rant, but like I said, that is KayoticVerse for you. Chaotic by nature, coded by culture. Check out the website if you want some clothing, or don't. I don't really give a you know what, but Like, in all seriousness, I'm going to keep watching the show. You are going to keep watching the show. You're going to make another negative review, but you're going to watch the show. You're going to buy the merchandise just like me. And most of y'all, that was the craziest part. Y'all, people are still buying and going to watch and making negative reviews. I really think that it is easy to be negative because you don't have to articulate yourself. I can just tell you what I don't like. And ain't nothing wrong with that. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Do what you want. I just thought that a lot of comments and critiques were absurd because I said, are you guys even watching a movie? What do you mean you don't want Holly scenes to be in there? How are we supposed to see what's going on? We just found out because of Holly that there was another dimension. Where the children are at. That's how you found out that the upside down, that place is not, that Vecna is not in the upside down, it's in a whole other world. That's what the 12 clock is. The 12 clock is powered by the children that Vecna snatched. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm not going to keep ranting, but that is pretty much it. Like I said, chaotic verse, coded by culture, chaotic by nature. Peace.